GGG just revealed PathofExile 1's expansion league called Secrets of the Atlas, and there are a lot of changes that are going to affect minions and how we build them. Hi, I'm Deconic, and in this video we're going to be going over what I consider are the most impactful of these changes. The first, and what I think will have the most impact on minion builds, is the league mechanic itself, the Mercenaries of Thrathus. The TLDR is you are going to encounter mercenaries throughout raid class, and these mercenaries have synergistic abilities and items which depend on their archetype. You'll be able to hire and gear these mercenaries, essentially making them a sort of second pseudo AG, which can use actual abilities. And just for context, our regular minion builds, which use AG, depending on how you gear your AG, can literally have you almost double your damage while also increasing your survivability. And this is a minion that cannot use abilities like the T's Vigilant Strike with Gilded Fortification combo, which provides Fortify to the mercenaries and their allies. While on the note of mercenaries, they also teased a Reanimator archetype. This, I think, as a safe assumption, you can say is going to be weighted to have summon-related skills and gear. The T's Mercenary had a Raised Zombie of Gigantism. Now this, I can only imagine, either does one of two things. It either does what Montrego's Grasp the Scepter currently does, which is halves the number of zombies you can have for bigger, stronger, more damage zombies, or it limits you to one giga zombie that, you know, probably does insane damage or something like that. We don't know what it does, but this is just speculation. With this archetype, it is possible that we're going to see some aura bot summoner builds emerge, where you primarily scale your minions through your auras, and in the process you're also scaling your mercenaries minions. If you're enjoying the content and you haven't already, do consider liking and subscribing, as it helps a lot with the algorithm and with our 2025 goal of getting 2,000 subs, after which I will be doing a face reveal on stream and here on YouTube. Another change which is really big for summoners is they made it so your Anime Guardian no longer drops his gear on death. This means that we can finally not have to re-gear an AG and just gear it once a season, and worst case scenario, it dies, you're still fine. This doesn't mean you're going to make squishy AGs, because what they said is that once an AG dies, you cannot resummon it in the area. That said, a viewer did mention something important, which is it is possible that you might be able to go back to your hideout, resummon the AG, and then go into the map with it. Now there is also the possibility that it just gets instantly unsummoned because it died in the area or something like that. We don't really know if that is the case. It wasn't clarified, but just keep that in mind. During the reveal stream, there were some item modifiers that were teased that were also very, very important to take note of, because I see them opening up avenues for certain minion builds. As the first example is going to be, there was a glove modifier that said converts 100% of minion fire damage to chaos damage. And this is important because previously there weren't easy ways to convert minion elemental damage to chaos damage if it was not base physical damage. Now with the change, this effectively means more chaos builds are going to open up, and I think it's a safe assumption to say there might be a lightning version of this modifier as well as a code version, and we might be able to just pick one of these modifiers and convert in that regard. Another item modifier that was also important to note is we're now getting minion cooldown recovery rate on belts. Now the row they showed was 20% increased minion cooldown recovery rate, and I don't think this modifier is actually going to be that good, and I don't expect to see it on many builds. The reason being is 20% increased cooldown recovery rate is very minuscule. If you have no other sources of cooldown recovery rate, that's like 16% CDR, and it's on a slot that's competing with like something as strong as Darkness Enthroned, and in the late game maybe Mage Blood and stuff like that. Like, it's not 60% CDR is not that great, and if you get other sources of CDR, then that is even less than 16%. So not a great modifier, but that is assuming 20% is the highest. If it actually goes higher than 20%, then this is a modifier that might actually hold its ground against other belts. Now the reveal that made minion players everywhere lose their absolute shit was when they revealed the new minion shield unveiled for Katarina, which is the Bitter Bind point shield that essentially had +1 to max number of specters and plus proj to specters. Now, this is important because it might not be the greatest shield. It didn't really have as many defensive stats. It might not even be a shield we end up using, except like in certain builds. But that meant there were new unveiled modifier for minions, and that also leads me to believe other Katarina specific unique unveils might have also changed. And a good example of this is King of Kulemak. That staff has 4 potential unveils, and it is not outside the realm of possibility to think there are now some insane modifiers for minions lying in there. Same thing with Devouring Diadem. So it is very, very possible that there are some really insane modifiers in there, and we'll have to wait and see just how impactful these things end up being. Now, to move on to patch notes and the impactful changes that would affect minion builds, the most impactful, in my opinion, and this is very opinionated, but like it's a nerf that I kind of didn't like. It was seeing Chaos Golem losing its PDR for its buff effect and instead gaining Chaos Res. This means that for the lower end or for league starts, it's actually in a stronger spot because Chaos Res is one of the harder reses to actually get, and being able to just get like 17% plus Chaos Res is very, very strong. But that means the higher end of minion builds just lost a whole lot of physical damage reduction, and physical damage has always been the most dangerous type of damage from minion builds in general. So losing support when we didn't have access to that many sources kind of it just feels bad. In that note though, Stone Golem did gain increased defense as a buff to its base buff of life regen. This is really nice and helps to kind of bridge that physical damage loss we just had. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not nearly as strong as PDR, but it does help to kind of counter the Chaos Golem nerf in that case. We also have Lightning Golem, which gain mana regen, and this is not as important for minion builds, but there are situations where you might be lacking in mana regen and you might not have the mana to reserve for clarity, and this would just help a lot, especially on builds like SRS. This could be a golem of choice if you decide to go multi-golem for caster minion builds like SRS, animate weapons, all of that, at least early on. And then we also have changes to the Guardian Ascendancy. We now have 2 node changes. We have the linked node changing. I believe that was what changed to random shrine buffs. The real kicker, and this feeds into what I said earlier with Aura Bots, is Guardian now has a 50% mana reservation node, which is absolutely insane for the concept of aura stacking for minion builds. And this is an ascendancy that already has 3 free 50% auras in the form of Wrath, Anger, and Hatred coming from minions. So I do expect to see more Guardian build popping out just because of this one change. Elementalists also saw a change that's bound to affect a certain minion archetype, most notably the Golemancers. This is very big for Golemancers because that means the new meta for them is going to be a no-brainer for going for Necromancer and then using Forbidden Flesh and Flame for your extra 2 golems versus having Elementalists and trying to Flesh and Flame something from Necromancer. This is overall going to mean Necromancer golems are going to be much stronger, but Elementalist golems are going to be much weaker as well. Leech Mastery also got a change from 10% of our leech being instant to 5%. This, in the grand scheme of things with how often we hit with minions, should not be too impactful of a nerf, and I do still see the mastery as a whole being very strong. It's just going to be weaker than it was before. And another slight less important late entry to the patch notes was that Executioner modifier for rare monsters, which is the modifier that stops recovery above 50%, now no longer affects minions. And that is huge because this was the single modifier that led to most AG deaths for better built AGs essentially. So now AG should be tankier all around, as well as, not losing their items on death. So I think that is a very, very big change to how the community interacts with AG. Minion builds will see a big shakeup with how they are made. And I, for one, am looking forward to tinkering with the mercenaries and new modifiers for the foreseeable future. I will also be making a detailed video on ways to itemize a mercenary alongside an animate guardian to create stronger synergies for your minions. So if that interests you, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. And with all that said, thank you for watching.